What if Neanderthals never actually died out, but just kept evolving? Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to dive into a massive, epic thought experiment. We are hypothetically reviving the Neanderthals and pushing them through literally every single major real-world extinction event that's happened since they vanished. We want to see exactly how they'd adapt. Because, when you boil it right down, that's really all evolution is, right? Adapting to your environment over time.
So, to kick things off, we really have to ask ourselves, what if they just kept going? Is there a physical limit to how strong they could actually become? And honestly, what would they even look like when this brutal, unforgiving process of evolution is finally done? The pressure to survive these extinction-level events is just astronomical, and, as you're going to see, the environment only gets deadlier as time marches on.
Here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll track their evolutionary progress through 5 distinct levels: the extreme ice age, the warm weather transition, the Holocene gauntlet, plagues and deep freezes, and finally, the ultimate superhuman survivor.
This timeline maps out the chronological survival gauntlet we're about to put them through. We're starting way back at the freezing Ice Age peak 100,000 years ago and going all the way down to a final present-day survival count. Each era forces massive biological adaptations, but keep in mind, evolution isn't free. Every single new biological upgrade comes at the heavy cost of Neanderthal lives.
Let's jump right into Section 1, the Extreme Ice Age.
We're starting with the last glacial maximum, which represents the absolute coldest the Earth has been in the last 100,000 years. Thrust into a world that literally gets colder every single year for 14,000 years, the Neanderthal body goes into pure overdrive. Imagine having to survive a 14,000-year winter. The scale of adaptation here is sheer madness. They become incredibly strong with insane fat storage. They get shorter and stockier, which is the superior build for retaining heat. Their nose is broadened, and their lung capacity just explodes. But the craziest part? The data suggests a rapid, massive increase in brain size just to cope with these extreme conditions. So they become shorter, ridiculously strong, and highly intelligent.
Which brings us to Section 2, the warm weather transition.
But, as we know, evolution isn't static. Over the next 15,000 years following the last glacial maximum, the planet actually starts to warm up, and a terrifying new threat emerges. The massive cave bears and mammoths they entirely relied on for food begin going extinct. Suddenly, those thick, cold-weather bodies with godlike strength become a massive liability in the heat. They just require way too many calories in a world where food is rapidly disappearing. So, to survive, they're forced into a complete physical overhaul. They evolve taller, slender frames to dissipate heat faster, smaller noses, and a highly calorie-efficient metabolism.
Our source material summarizes this physical transformation perfectly. They are slowly making the transition from sumo wrestler to supermodel. It's a great analogy. As they lost their megafauna food sources, the hot weather literally shrank them down. This slender physique required significantly less food, which was the exact adaptation they needed to stop from starving right alongside those mammoths. So, what actually happens when you aren't spending all your time hunting giant, deadly mammoths? Well, you start foraging. You hunt smaller, way less dangerous prey. You start supplementing your diet with fruits and veggies. And because these new hunts are less dangerous, fewer hunters die, meaning their population numbers actually begin to bounce back. With more free time and a larger community, kind of similar to early human agriculture, this growing population vastly accelerated their development of new technologies.
Next up is Section 3, the Holocene gauntlet.
Just as things were looking promising and relatively stable, they enter the Holocene. This era is aptly nicknamed the genocide era by our source material, and for good reason. Some of the most devastating disasters in history hit them back to back. The Earth experiences massive forest growth, and our stat tracker shows them gaining what can only be described as Wolverine-like upgrades. They develop much faster maneuverability and sharper senses specifically tailored for short-range ambush hunting in dense, dark forests. Their grip and upper body strength spike for climbing trees, and their bones literally become thicker from constantly working with heavy logs.
But here's the catch. Good times for the Neanderthals also meant good times for apex predators. Around 8,000 years ago, as our newly upgraded Neanderthals expanded into Eastern and Southeastern Europe, they ran straight into droves of ferocious lions, bears, and wolves. These predators were competing for the exact same food, and if they were hungry enough, hey, they were more than happy to hunt a Neanderthal.
This constant threat forced our survivors to cooperatively defend themselves, further increase that bone robusticity, and invent far deadlier weapons just to stay alive.
Moving on to Section 4, Plagues and Deep Freezes. If you thought dodging European lines was bad, brace yourself. These final 4 rapid-fire extinction events compound together simultaneously to drain their evolutionary progress bar to the absolute brink. Surviving this requires winning an almost impossible biological lottery. First, volcanic eruptions pump toxic fumes into the air, triggering a return to shorter limbs and massive metabolisms. Second, the Little Ice Age forces the rapid creation of highly advanced, warmer clothing. Third and fourth, the bubonic plague and the Spanish flu completely ravage the population. Surviving this relentless gauntlet demands an insane, superhuman immune system and incredibly advanced medical knowledge.
Finally, Section 5, the ultimate superhuman survivor.
After enduring 100,000 years of the Earth quite literally trying to wipe them out through freezing cold, massive heat waves, vanishing food sources, apex predators, toxic volcanic winters, and global plagues, it takes a massive toll. The old traits cause billions to die. By a very rough approximation from the source material, out of everyone who started this journey, only about 5,000 individuals actually make it through the gauntlet to the modern age. Just 5,000. That is it.
But those who did survive, man, they are no longer just Neanderthals. They are the ultimate evolutionary peak, the modern Neanderthal. Basically, an unkillable, superhuman mutant species. Molded by the most catastrophic events in Earth's history, they're now endowed with incredibly strong bodies, advanced medicine, and impenetrable, absolute god-tier immune systems.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative question to ponder. We've seen the immense, brutal power of evolution and adaptation and exactly what it costs a species to survive the impossible. So if 5,000 of these brilliant, practically unkillable superhuman mutants lived among us today, sharing our cities and our world, what would our world actually look like? It's a totally fascinating thought experiment, and honestly, it completely changes how we view human resilience. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.